It's October 16th, 2001. This is the How It Works class, session number 6, The Nature of Spiritual Healing. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Tonight, the topic is the nature of spiritual healing, which is really a good topic to sum up everything that we've learned up to this point, because it really draws on an understanding of all the previous material. It's also the hardest topic to teach because people resist, it seems like, hearing it, or resist believing it, or resist accepting it. But let's jump in. We talked about the material view of the world, physics, and then we talked about the metaphysical view of existence, which is that it's mind as appearing as matter. And then we talked about the mystical or spiritual view of the world, which is that all it really is the consciousness of God, and that everything is expressed in the consciousness of God. And healing has the same three levels. There's material healing, which is doctors and medicine. And the purpose of material healing is to diagnose what the problem is and prescribe the correct medicine and heal the body. And there is also a metaphysical approach to healing. And that approach is to use your mind as a tool to see health where you were seeing disease before. So it's the strength of my mind against the strength of your mind. The goal of metaphysical healing, once again, is to heal the body. I'll just say that we have evidence that of the power of metaphysical healing because voodoo is a form of metaphysical healing. That's the power of one mind, the voodoo wizard's mind, over the power of a weaker mind, the ordinary lay soul who doesn't think he has any power. So voodoo is certainly an example of and a demonstration of metaphysical healing, of using the mind as a tool to heal. So, as you know, we talk about white magic and black magic, good magic and bad magic, and all these powers exist, and they do work, and they demonstrate, in fact, that there are other things going on with respect to disease and everything else than just the germ theory. Spiritual healing is, first of all, its purpose is not to heal the body. Its purpose is to have an experience of the presence of God, a realization of the presence and the nature of God, and let that experience reflect as whatever it reflects as, which is usually or often what we would call a healing of the body. But the purpose is not to heal the body. The purpose is to have the experience of the presence of God. at some point we have to, we have a disease theory. We have, three corresponding theories of the cause of disease. And the material theory about the cause of disease is germs, or some variation on germs or cancer or viruses or what have you. And that level of belief, if you believe that, if you accept that belief, if you accept the belief of human consciousness, of the 8 billion, then you are at the mercy of those laws. And you're a statistic, and of the people who are just in human consciousness, the appropriate 30% will get the flu every winter, and the appropriate 20% will catch colds in the spring, and whatever the actuarial tables say, the appropriate number will get cancer, and the appropriate number will get this and that and the other thing, and we become a statistic if we are accepting the material level. If we go a step higher and accept that our experience that the material experience is mind outpictured, then we're suddenly, then we have, first of all, we're denying the disease as the law, as the cause of disease. I mean, denying germs and viruses and things like that as the cause of disease. We're now saying that the cause of disease is mental, and that a mental power is what we would use to fix that. And this was the form of the earlier healing religions, like the Christian Science belief. The people initially believed that various diseases had a particular one-to-one correspondence between particular mental errors and mental and physical diseases. I have no idea what they were, but it might be that if you were selfish, it might cause cancer, and if you were angry, it might cause tumors, and various beliefs like that. And it brought about a whole series of beliefs like that, and a whole series of psychosomatic medicine teachings and stuff like that, and that seemed to have some validity to the extent that people believed that. It certainly seemed to be true. And the application of mental power can certainly reverse those, and people ran all sorts of experiments. They grew plants and would go into the room where the plants were growing and think terrible thoughts about how the plant was dying, and then they'd have another set of plants in an identical room and go in there and think just held thoughts of how wonderful the plants were doing, and have recordable differences. Have recordable differences in the success of the plants. The plants that were encouraged would grow twice as large as the plants that were discouraged, which would in fact shrivel up and die. And so this sort of thing has been demonstrated. The spiritual nature of healing is based in the principle that we brought out the first class, that has come up over and over again through this series, and that is that my experience is a direct outpicturing of the content of my consciousness. And to some extent this corroborates the metaphysical healing thing, because it's the power of my consciousness, it's the content of my consciousness that is producing my experience. It's not the same as the metaphysical belief, because it's not specifically my anger that's causing my hemorrhoids, or whatever we choose to put the correspondences there. But the fact that I believe in germ theory or virus theory or stuff like that will result in that being part of my experience. And if I don't believe that I'm available, if I don't believe that I'm susceptible to catching colds or catching flus or anything like that, then I won't. Yeah.
Do you get sick?
Almost never. Almost never. I don't catch colds or flus or anything like that. Once in a while I start to get something, and I always feel it starting to come on, and I always take steps right then to know the truth. It's a choice, but it's not a choice until you know it's a choice. And it's not a superficial belief. It's a deep-seated belief. It takes a long time to get the depth of belief that will have the effect. But it's a thing to practice. We'll go there in a minute. Joel Goldsmith was a great healer, and Jesus, who was really Joel's teacher, was a great healer. And we have a lot of stories in the Bible about Jesus' healings, and Jesus seems to me to have used healing primarily as a demonstration of the truth of his teaching. My favorite Jesus story is of the man who his people dragged him on the pallet that he was laying on. He was lame since birth apparently, and they dragged him on a pallet to where Jesus could heal him. And Jesus' answer wasn't, "Oh gee, that's too bad, let me heal you, let me correct this." His response was, "What's hindering you? Get up and rise, stand up, walk away." Jesus denied that there was any power in the apparent disease, and he did that over and over. He denied that there was power in Lazarus being dead and in the tomb for 3 days, and he denied that there was power. He always denied that there was any power in it. He knew that the human consciousness was causing disease, and he knew that there was no power in human consciousness, that God was the reality, and that God, outpicturing, is the natural truth. And through this knowledge, he saw the truth, and it reflected in whoever was the client that came to him for healing. And he did that, I'm sure, just as an ongoing demonstration of the truth of his teaching. And Joel did the same thing. Joel, in his first enlightenment, when he first had his revelation, a byproduct of that was the ability to heal. And he didn't know how he did it then, but his consciousness was lifted so high and there was so much truth in him that healing started happening around him without any intention on his part. His first encountering with the fact of healing was that like a day or two after he had his experience, he was on the street and some lady came up to him, some total stranger came up to him and said, "Sir, would you pray for me? I've been sick for a long time, and I know that if you would pray for me, I would be healed." And Joe, looks at her and what is going on here? But, he's a nice guy. And he said to himself, he says, "I don't know any prayers except now I lay me down to sleep. I mean, this is not a prayerful guy. This is a drinking guy and a businessman and a card player and, stuff like that he was doing back then in the early 1900s when that was considered really pretty far out. But he said, "Well, I will anyway." And so he closed his eyes and said, "God, I don't know what it is you want me to say or what to do. I have no idea what this is all about this." And she's tugging at his sleeve and she's healed. And she says, "Thank you," and walks off. So now he knows he's got something different going on. And about a year later, his partner in his clothing or his materials he had an importing business. He imported laces and things that were used in making clothes. And his partner, one morning when he comes in, says, "You've had 18 calls today." And Joel says, "Oh, well, that's nice, let's get to work." And he says, "No, there have been 18 requests for healing. There have been no calls for lace business. Why don't you accept the fact that you're no longer in the lace business and you're now a healer?" And so at that point he did switch over and become a Christian Science healer, and he started having a history of healing. He had some incredible healings. I mean, he was healing cancer, and he was healing children that were born without limbs, and he was, having results that they would grow limbs, and he was turning breech babies over to head-down babies when they were in the mother, and he had a healing success rate of 80% or so. And during the height of his career, he was like dealing with 135 calls a day on the average, 7 days a week. So, a real history of healing. So the people that are in the Infinite Way tradition, his students and their students, all have a great confidence in the possibility or the reality of this kind of healing.
So Henry, saying that he, by his own power in his own belief, was able to do the healing, or did it also require that the person being healed believe in it to the degree that he did?
Not to the degree that he did. It's the consciousness, and we will get to that as we go through the method here, it's the consciousness of the healer that determines the healing, but the client needs to have aligned their consciousness with the healers.
I'm thinking of a baby who doesn't have really a human consciousness yet, maybe that subconsciously through mom, but being able to do that, or was he working through mom?
Babies are under their mother's consciousness for like the first 12 or 14 years. It's really not until puberty that people start going under their own consciousness. So babies are under their mother's consciousnesses or their father's.
So were you drawing the alliance that Joel also was healing as a demonstration of truth, like Jesus?
I think Joel used it as a carrot. The fact is that it drew people to him. And as a result of, and it did for Jesus too, it was his carrot. It drew people to him, and they would have healings because Joel was such a powerful healer. And then they'd go away and revert to their old thinking and their old consciousness. Their consciousness was still there, and their consciousness would continue to manifest problems rather than solutions, because the healing by the healer is a momentary lifting. And so they'd come back, and after a while they'd want to know, what's going on here, and how do I learn to do this, and such like, and they would become his students. So I think Joel was using it as the carrot, luring people in. It was in the time that Joel was doing this work, spiritual healing was a very common thing. The Christian church, or the Christian Scientists church, had lots of healers. There were buildings full of people who had regular healing practices, and people would come in and they would pay money to Christian Science and Unity, and who thought they'd pay money to the healers to do healings for them, come in on appointments and get healings just exactly as it was a business, just like the medical profession. And so it was a fairly easy world at that time for the people that were in this environment to accept spiritual healing and hear about it and come to somebody like Joel and learn about it. I got out the notes that I used 5 years ago when we taught a class back in '96, and I look at them and they're so right on, and it just always delights me to find that something holds still, Joel taught, as Joel then proceeded to study study the nature of healing and study the practice of doing spiritual healing, and learned some rules which he then proceeded to teach people so that he could teach people how to do it. because he was, unsatisfied with not knowing how it was done, because he figured that the time would come when he would lose it if he didn't understand the principle. So he spent quite a bit of time in meditation trying to learn the principles. And his principles, and I'm going to give some details about spiritual healing for a couple of reasons. First of all, this really reinforces what we've been saying about your experience being the outpicturing of your consciousness, which is, I guess, the underlying principle of this class, and so we keep coming back to that. And the other reason is that you should start doing this, or could start doing this. Why not start practice? Why not start the practice? Why not start developing the discipline? Why not start using this both on yourself and on children or small people that are around you, or people that come to you for healing in a variety of ways? You can use this. It's a practice, and it takes a while to develop the ability to heal other people because of our inherent disbelief that we're going to be able to do it. And of course that will dominate our demonstration. So Joel always started with his first step was impersonalization. And by impersonalization he means forget about the client and forget about the problem. The person, the client is bringing a claim to you, but what they're claiming is the problem isn't the problem. They're saying, I've got this tumor on my arm. And the problem is not the tumor. The problem is in the belief that tumors are possible, that there is causes for tumors, that the problem is in the content of the consciousness of the client. But the problem is not the specific problem that's brought to the practitioner. The default for all of us is that we believe what human consciousness believes, and human consciousness, as I've said, believes in diseases and viruses and things like that. And so the client typically has those beliefs, and the problem is in the belief that the client has, not in the particular manifestation that's happening. Robert always talks about, getting a tumor removed on one arm and it growing on the other arm, and getting it removed on the other arm and it grows back on your butt, and you get it removed there, and it grows on your ear, and the point is that you don't deal with the problem, you deal with the cause. And the cause is the belief. So the first thing that Joel always did was he would throw the specific claim and the one who was making the claim out of his consciousness entirely. He would forget who brought what claim. About as much as he would know is that there is a claim about disease, or there's a claim about black, or there's a claim. He would know perhaps what the nature of the claim was, but he would immediately drop the picture in his mind of who was causing, who had the problem, and what the details of the problem were. And after impersonalize it, then he would do what he called nothingizing it. And nothingizing it means recognizing that there is no power that is causing this problem. Let's say the claim is cancer. The cause of the cancer is nothing in that particular person. The cause of the cancer is the human belief in cancer and that particular person's acceptance of the human belief. And then he would remember that the human belief has no power. It's really impotent. It only has power if you believe it. Lies only have power if you believe them. So he would remember that what claims to be the cause of this is really impotent. It has no power. And he would also remember, and I do this especially, that there's no source. It's not like there's some specific person or collection of people out there who are very specifically believing this stuff in order to cause disease. It's just, the fact is that people believe it, and so they keep reinforcing each other's belief, so there's no real source. And there's no target. It's not like you're the target of human belief. It's just that the human belief is out there, and you're just picking it up because you're available to it, because it's consistent with your belief. So, and there's no law that sustains it. The law of whatever it is, the law is that, if we're talking about flu, the law of viruses that cause flu is not true. So he would essentially, take away all the power in the claim. It has no source, it has no target, it has no power, it has no law. There's nothing specifically there sustaining this. It's just a belief. It's just hypnotism. It's just the acceptance of the human belief, which is hypnotism. So the person and the people that are looking at this claim are just hypnotized people. Yeah.
Do you believe that the animal kingdom has a belief system? Non-human animals?
No, not. I mean, they don't have conscious thought type beliefs, I don't believe.
Okay. And the next question that follows is,
Why do animals get sick?
why?
Because people have a belief in animal diseases. Joel says animals are really easy to cure because they don't cling to the belief at all. Because they don't have a belief that animals are available to spiritual healing at the request of their owners.
So we give them disease?
Where else would it come from is the real question. It's not that we give them disease, it's that we accept the fact that disease is the nature of this. The whole thing is hypnosis. Okay? It's not just the fact that they have disease that it's hypnosis, it's the whole thing is hypnosis. The whole idea of animals and people and all that is hypnosis. And it certainly is part of the material belief, part of the belief in diseases that results in diseases in everything.
So the belief in disease is just like the belief in the body.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Like if you believe that you're the body, you think you're a human, you get all the other human beliefs along with that, which includes believing in disease or sickness or wealth or any of the dualities.
The whole thing, from the spiritual viewpoint, this is all an appearance in consciousness. It's like I mentioned earlier, like when you have a dream at night. When you have a dream at night, the dream may be apparently a fairly lengthy dream, and it may be a complicated dream, and it may be a dream about your friend getting and dying from cancer, or it may be a dream about your cat dying from cancer, or it may be a dream about birds being eaten by cats, or it may be a dream about anything. You're perfectly capable of dreaming about anything, and the question is, if you dream about a person having cancer or a dog having cancer, where did the cancer come from? It certainly did not come from, I don't know what causes cancer. I guess people don't know what causes cancer. So let's take flu. If you have a dream that you're with a sick friend who has flu, what caused that flu in the dream? It certainly wasn't a virus that caused the flu in the dream. It was the dream. You know, there was no flu, first of all, right? In fact, there was no person there who had flu. That was all in your consciousness. And if it was a dog that had the flu, it would be no different at all. The source of diseases in your dream is not germs. The source of accidents in your dreams is not drunk driving or reckless driving or planes falling out of the sky or anthrax or anything like that. You know, you may have a dream about anthrax killing somebody, but the source of the death was not the anthrax. It was just part of the dream. Okay? In exactly the same sense, this picture is an outpicturing in consciousness. And the source of the dream is not what's happening in the picture, it's the source from which the picture comes. It's the projector. Yeah.
You said that Robert had Parkinson's disease, and I don't quite understand if he doesn't. How is that possible with Parkinson's?
It gets all different when you're as high as Robert. Robert, if you asked Robert, would not say that he had Parkinson's disease.
Right.
Robert would say, who sees the Parkinson's disease? Oh, you see Parkinson's disease. I was with Robert for years, and it was very clear to me that Robert did not think he had Parkinson's disease because he didn't think that was even his body.
Was there anybody that could see him not have it? Anybody that was spiritually awakened that could see that he didn't have it? Or
he wasn't the body. The body may have had it, but he wasn't the body.
So there's no spiritual healing that could have taken place, or I mean,
it wasn't relevant.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't even relevant. The rules get entirely different when you get to somebody like Robert. Now, I've seen momentary healings on Robert. I've seen another consciousness. I've seen Robert, you notice the tapes in here stop at the end of 92, because by 93 he was mumbling so much that it was really hard to hear what he was saying. And certainly on a tape when you weren't there you couldn't hear it. And yet I was at a meeting in 94 that he came in, and there was a little bit of healing going on there, and he spoke absolutely clearly for that talk. So it certainly could happen. But it was of no interest to Robert. Robert's a very strange phenomenon, and I don't want to get off in Robert's stories, but I will tell you one. Robert's wife took him to the hospital one time for some other problem that he had, and they put a blood pressure device on his arm and got no reading. So they threw it out, and they went and got another one and pumped that up and got no reading. Robert's blood pressure was 0/0. And he saw the great concern of all these people and remembered, and his blood pressure went up to where it was supposed to be. He forgot to run his blood pressure. He was so unattached to that body and so unapart of that body that it didn't even perform the way it didn't need blood pressure. It didn't perform. It was just an outpicturing of consciousness, and it didn't do any of the things, you know. Very strange guy. So he's different. On the other hand, Joel wore glasses. And the question is, well, why did Joel wear glasses? And Joel's answer is, well, I could probably spend 2 or 3 weeks and sit here and work. He says, eyes are hard. He said, I don't know why, but eyes and teeth and bones are hard. And he said, I could probably spend 2 or 3 weeks working on, going to retreat and going to meditation and work on it and solve my eyes. But that's 3 weeks in which 135 people a day didn't get their healings. So he wore his glasses, just didn't concern himself about it.
Would he believe in like laser eye surgery if he was around today? And that's like medicine, and
he might.
I went there and it was done in an hour.
I don't know whether he'd do that or not. There's not a crusade. If it was convenient and he was convinced that he wasn't going to solve the problem without spending 2 or 3 weeks and didn't want to and wanted to have perfectly normal sight, then he might have done that. There would have been no moral reason not to. or anything. This is
He
not
certainly never told people don't go to doctors or anything like that, right?
He told people to go to doctors if they weren't getting success anywhere in any other way. He told Barbara to go to the doctor. Barbara was talking about not having this and not being able to do this and being worried about that. Barbara was concerned about her daughter. And Joel said, take her to the doctor. Let's don't grind on this for 3 or 4 weeks. Take her to the doctor. When your consciousness is higher, this won't happen. But right now, this is where we are. Go to the doctor. So the healing is a reflection of the practitioner's consciousness. Jesus knew beyond any question of a doubt that there was no power that was making this person sick, or this person blind, or this person dead, and he just knew the truth and recognized it, and it manifested because that person's consciousness was aligned with his. They had come to him asking for help. He often said, do you believe that I can do this? And that is a requirement to some extent. It's necessary. The manifestation is caused by the content of the client's consciousness. And if the client is clinging to the belief that's causing the manifestation, it will be a very difficult or an impossible heal. And people can be clinging to it for lots of reasons that they don't know. Like it might be very difficult to heal a person who was sick because when they were a kid they were sick and it was the only way they got any mothering. And so they've learned that if they're not sick they won't get love. And so they're clinging to being sick as their tool for mothering and love. And this whole process is way below their consciousness, so they don't know about it, and yet it might be very difficult to lift that person out of that. But if they really believe that the healing will happen, then chances are it can. And Jesus also would say things like, go and sin no more after a healing. And what he's really saying is, clean up your consciousness or this is going to happen again. Don't expect a permanent healing. Expect a permanent healing in this particular thing, but don't, if you get the flu healed, don't expect that you won't manifest cancer or something else down the line unless you change your consciousness. That at some point it's going to be necessary for you to do the work yourself and lift your own consciousness. The practitioner works on his or her own consciousness. The practitioner does not heal the client. The practitioner heals himself, his own belief. He's been presented with a lie, and he has to go within himself and recognize the falsity of that. So the healing is always done by the practitioner within his or her own consciousness. And the practitioner is not concerned with the client's consciousness or the client's picture or anything at all. The practitioner works on knowing their own truth. And they will do whatever they need to do to lift themselves in consciousness to that point that they see the truth. If we can let's get quiet just for a second, and let's I started doing a meditation about 6 years ago, and it keeps changing and changing, and we'll just do that now together. And it's a very healing meditation. And people that are aligned with me when I'm doing this meditation will sometimes feel some good effects from it. I started, for some reason, beginning every meditation with the words, peace be still, and know that I am God. So I always start there. And I've been doing that so long that now that already lifts me and I feel the silence. So it's peace be still and know that I am God. And I am here. I am always here. I am all that is here. I'm the only reality. I'm the only reality of everyone and of everything. I'm the one consciousness, the only consciousness, the consciousness in which everything appears. Everything appears within me. I'm the creator and the creation. I'm the very fabric of the universe. I'm the substance of all form. Just as the nature of everything made out of glass is glass, so the nature of everything made out of me is me. And I am the fabric of the universe, the substance of all form. So the nature of everything is my nature. And I am pure consciousness. I'm eternal, self-luminous, harmonious, peaceful, loveful, joyful, blissful, omniscient, omnipotent, so this is the only possible nature, true nature, of everyone and everything. And then I sometimes just add the thought, thank you for the fact that everything anybody has ever asked for has been eternally true. Those who want to be well have been eternally perfect, pure. Those who have wanted more abundance have been infinitely abundant. Eternally. Those who lack understanding have been omniscient eternally. So at this point, when I'm in this meditation and I'm in this consciousness, then I, like Robert, don't have a body. The body is an appearance in this consciousness that I am. And knowing the nature, experiencing the nature of what I am as this consciousness, that will reflect in this body which I still have associated with me, unlike Robert, who didn't have his body associated with him. And if you're here tonight with me, and you've linked up with me, then we're all or cancer, because I'm not the body. And so it's inconceivable that anyone here could have anything wrong with them, since they too are the same consciousness that I am. There's only the one consciousness which we all are. So now we all are in the consciousness that that's our nature. And it will reflect in our bodies and those who are with us. So I don't want to hear about no sniffles tonight. That's the kind of practice that we want to develop. It's the kind of practice that you mothers especially want to develop around your children. You can also practice this around everyone. I mean, this is a very good thing to practice around everyone. If they haven't asked you for a healing, or if they're not within your consciousness, under your consciousness, if they haven't submitted to your consciousness, you're not likely to see any immediate results from it. But you may. People who don't even know there is such a thing as spiritual healing may well be drawn to you for what they think are other reasons, and thus associate themselves with your consciousness.
So it's equally as inconceivable that you could be in any kind of lack, or that there's anything for you to be afraid of at all.
If you're if you're aware that you're consciousness, all there is infinite, omnipresent, eternal consciousness. How can there, the word lack has no meaning. And there's only the oneness, so how can there be anything to be afraid of? How can there be? If there's only one, what is there to be afraid of? It's only when we're back in this, when I'm thinking that I am this body, separate from you and separate from them and separate from God, that now I have 8 million potential problems. But if I'm the one consciousness that you are, that God is, then there's no place for any of that.
So, Lee, you said first that if you have children, that this is a good format or whatever to use. So if you were to do healings on your children, do they walk through this as well with you? And do you ask them things like, what are you clinging to and why? And can you do that with them? Or?
It depends on how old or how young they are. As children get older, as they grow consciously, then they're more empowered and should be included more in this. If they're very young children, then of course they have no capability of intellectually dealing with this at an intellectual level, although they're very available to you spiritually, because the delineation between them and the rest of the world is something which is developed and conditioned.
But you're not doing healing on them, right? You said you're healing, you're working on your own consciousness.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you
You're
see,
just knowing the truth.
if you see your son with a cold, the son doesn't have a cold, you have a error in your consciousness. If you're seeing a cold, you need to correct yourself. You need. That's why I say that the practitioner has to heal him or herself. If you're seeing a cold, you need to heal yourself, because there's an error in your consciousness. You're seeing a cold, and that's not what's happening. That's the appearance. It sounds to many of us as something that's unreachable or unattainable. We've held this class once or twice before this, back as early as '96. And nobody's, well, a couple of you are starting to think about becoming practitioners after 5 or 6 years. It's a daily work. It's a daily exercise to develop this level of consciousness, and like everything else, like all the stuff we do here, like the script work and the kid work and the relationship work, these are all things we use to bring us to developing our own consciousness. And it's just like sponsoring people. Forces you to grow your own consciousness about the spiritual principles that underlie AA. So working on healing your kids, you may have no luck at all with your kids for 5 or 6 years, but if you try it every day, you will be raising your own consciousness over and over and over again, and it will become deeper and deeper with you, and at some point you will start having effect.
You know how I told you about my son?
Mm-hmm.
Now, so if I sort of clean up my consciousness, so to speak, and see him without anything, but over time that could have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How old is your son?
25.
Mm-hmm. So less so than if he were to do the work himself.
Yeah, I'm going to share this with him.
But always, the only thing you can do for anyone is raise your own state of consciousness. You raise your own state of consciousness, and those who come into your consciousness experience that raised state, and they will get lifted. Or you lower your own state of consciousness, and those who come into your immediate area will get drugged down. The fact is that the only thing you can do is work on your own. The only meaningful thing you can do is work on your own consciousness. You can't lecture him, you can't talk him into doing things, you can't prescribe for him. There's nothing you can do for your son except know the truth about him. And even if nothing explicit is said, why, he may start wanting to hang out with you more because he feels uplifted around you, okay? And then he may ask you why you feel so peaceful about it. And, things like that happen. As you get higher in your own consciousness, people will come around you because they feel it. And they'll want to know what you have. So the answer, for everything is to work on yourself. But yeah, for your first step is to, if you think he has a problem, heal yourself. Because that's your error. A lot of other people may be making the same error, his doctor, but nonetheless, that's an error you're making. It's not true. I know it's not true. Having not met your son or know anything about it, I know it's not true. Can't be, So that's probably the only thing you can do. By the way, Joel Goldsmith's book, The Art of Spiritual Healing, is a real good, if you want to explore this, that's a real good place to start.
It's like on order next 6 weeks.
Okay, it's a good one. And a subsequent book, after you've read that one a few times, a subsequent book of his called The Realization of Oneness is a second book on spiritual healing. But you should get familiar with the first one. Make 2 or 3 passes through the first one and practice that a while. And assimilate that one before you go to the second one. Oh, it's still early.
Just say, for me in the situation on my road to be like a spiritual healer, there's higher levels and things, but in the case of just starting, for me it seems like a big leap of faith, like if I believe, like say my son had anthrax or some like horrible thing, and then if I believe that I didn't see it as he had that, it would be, is it just my mind being this extreme, or if I didn't believe it that way, then I wouldn't treat him for that. I wouldn't get him the Cipro or whatever. And if I'm understanding you right, then I would just let it be, because I wouldn't want to treat something that I didn't believe to be so. And then so...
You need to operate from where you're at consciously, not where you want to be. A Christian Science practitioner who was a successful practitioner might well not treat their child for some apparent problem because they knew it was the truth and the child would be fine. Whereas another one who was studying Christian Science practitionering, who had a son that looked the same, the son might die while they were withholding the medicine and working on their consciousness. So you need to know where you're coming from.
But would it be possible that I did make the error and then they did die and then
Absolutely.
error? Okay.
Absolutely.
It's just like,
because what you're claiming to believe and what you believe aren't necessarily the same. What you really believe aren't necessarily the same, and also the client may have their own thing going on that's preventing the healing.
so it's really hard to pinpoint why exactly they died.
Mm-hmm. That's right. An interesting thing is that Joel is always very clear about, it doesn't work to ask for spiritual healing as a supplement to your medical healing. Because if you're taking pills for something, you're affirming your belief in the disease theory. And if you're doing that and asking for a spiritual healing as well, you're probably going to have no success from either. So you really pretty much need to go within and find out how you want to deal with something. Yeah, you need to go within and get quiet with yourself and find out what you're led to do. Whether you're going to deal with this spiritually or whether you're going to deal with it materially. If you're in fear, you probably want to go to the doctor.
And you can teeter in between both beliefs, right?
Oh yeah, moment to moment, and also problem to problem. Also problem to problem. It's interesting. Joel had difficulty with the first client for each symptom. The first person that had tuberculosis took him 6 or 8 months to break that case. She didn't get worse, but she didn't get better for 6 months or so, and he worked with her every day, and he finally broke that case, and then from that point on he had no trouble with tuberculosis because he'd broken his belief in tuberculosis. He had quite a bit subsequently. He had a case going on where he had 27 cancer patients stacked up in his outside office, and he was in one of these Christian Science practitioner buildings, and he had like 27 people with various stages of cancer calling him and waiting out there, and he's doing whatever. I have no idea what it's like having 27 people whose life is depending on but he's doing whatever he does, and there was a opening in his schedule. One day there was an hour in which nobody was scheduled, and which amazed him because there hadn't been an hour in weeks. And so he sat down within and went within. He said, well, this must be a time that I'm supposed to learn something. So he got quiet and went within, and the voice asked him, how many clients do you have? And Joel said, 27. And the voice said, no, you have only one. And Joe said, yeah, you're my only client. God here has 27 people with cancer. And the phone started ringing, and the 27 people, all had healings at the same time or within hours and half a day or so, and the phone started ringing, and they all got cured there, and then he had no trouble with cancer from that point on. And there were other things that he continued to have problems with all the way. He was just starting to work on mongoloids and children that were born mongoloid and people like that. and had not had any success with that yet, but saw no reason why it should be any different. This too is hypnosis. So he was working at a pretty amazing level. He also says that, the truth that you need to know for healing is a specific truth. His argument is that if somebody is claiming that 3 times 3 is 12, the truth that 2 times 2 is 4 will not heal that. The only thing that will heal 3 times 3 is 12 is knowing that 3 times 3 is 9. So you have to know the specific truth that deals with the particular problem. And that has to be taken in conjunction with the fact that he doesn't stay with the specific problem or the specific person that has the problem, but nonetheless he would not take abundance into his consciousness to deal with a disease problem. And he would not take harmony into his consciousness to deal with a problem of lack. When he was working on lifting his consciousness, he would tend to try to lift it specifically into the area that is, to the area of truth that corresponds to the claim. Yeah.
Did Barbara have that experience with healing? Because she seemed to write to Joel a lot and ask for healings for her kids and for her husband, but she experienced that?
She certainly did healing when she was teaching out in the valley. She certainly did lots of healings. I don't know what her experience was while she was with Joel, whether she did healings then or not. She started teaching a couple of years before Joel left his body. But certainly during the 30 years that she was teaching, she was also a very successful practitioner.
Do you do healing?
Some people call me and they call again, so apparently they get some results, or think they do. If I'm presented with a claim, I will go within and know the truth about it. And what happens as a result of that is certainly out of my control. But I certainly will, if presented with a claim, correct that claim within my own consciousness.
Do you see yourself as a healer?
I wouldn't use that word.
Do you have to see yourself as a healer to be a healer?
No. All those words I don't see myself as a teacher. But if you are taught, you probably see me as a teacher. Okay? I don't see myself as a healer, but if you are healed, you would see me as a healer.
Wouldn't it be the same if someone calls you and they're in emotional turmoil because of a false belief in something,
Mm-hmm.
and you know the truth about them, and therefore they're lifted?
Sure.
That's a healing.
Sure.
Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's physical healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing.
That happens every time somebody walks with me.
Right.
Nobody ever walks with me and doesn't feel better at the end of the walk. People always get lifted, walking with me on the Strand for an hour. And it's easy for me to lift you. I'm not invested in your problems at all. And you can do that for each other.
You said you wouldn't bring abundance into lack, or you wouldn't bring harmony into...
I wouldn't bring abundance into disease, and I wouldn't bring harmony into lack. I'm just saying that
Okay, I got it.
the point is that if you can go the whole way and know who you are, then there's nothing else to be said. But if you're working at lifting yourself and the person has come to you with a claim of disease, then you need to know the impossibility of disease, not the impossibility of unemployment, is what Joel was trying to say. If they claim unemployment, you don't say, well, God can't be sick. You say, God doesn't have anybody unemployed. God didn't make anybody he didn't have a use for, so it's impossible to be unemployed. And so you deal with unemployment that way. And if they claim to be sick, then you would realize that God is the substance of this person and God is not sick. I had one case with a person who was allergic to animals. And it just occurred to me, right in that moment, it just occurred to me, I started laughing, because it occurred to me, how can God be allergic to itself? And the problem went just like that. It was one case where it struck me so clearly that I laughed and the problem stopped, and that person now has pets. So it can happen like that. And other times nothing happens. Except that I don't get sick, so I keep my consciousness clear. See, if you told me about a cold and I didn't clear up my consciousness, I might catch it.
People that are claims to be what they call faith healers, can they be working at a metaphysical level, or it could be spiritual healing? It could be either.
I suppose either, or there's a whole nother thing going on. There's a whole emotional thing going on, the hysterical healings and stuff like that happens. People get so pumped up. The fact is that there are lots of ways that you can get somebody to believe very strongly that they're healed. And then they are, because the content of their consciousness has changed.
Is that like their mind over mind more so?
Yeah, it's their own. It's a change of belief, and it's not a matter of knowing spiritual truth. It's a matter of believing that they're healed.
There's just, in Ireland, there's this thing called a seventh son of a seventh son.
Mm-hmm.
You're just automatically supposed to have healing powers.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime there's a seventh son of a seventh, from a baby up, the kid is like prized.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have halls of people, and people believe it. And
Mm-hmm.
lots of healings.
And it works, sure, absolutely. And the places like Lourdes, with the holy waters, and the places with saints' relics and things like this, healing people, if you believe.
The person's belief in
Mm-hmm.
that.
Absolutely. Sure.
Just like their belief in the disease is what
Mhm.
causes the disease.
That's right. It looks different because in the case of if you believe you're going to get a healing, you do, and that's a constructive thing, whereas the belief in disease is a default. The fact is you're not consciously correcting your belief to not believe in disease, and therefore you're vulnerable to the human belief in disease. Remember, there's only one consciousness, and it's always broadcasting, and you've got to choose what you let into you. But yeah, all the faith healings and all that sort of stuff, the Baptist revivals and that kind of thing, I'm from the Old South, and the Holy Roller tent meetings and such like, they have real healings.
What about those guys that have to get bitten by the snakes or play with the snakes?
Sure, yeah, we had snake petters. We had foot washing Baptists, full immersion Baptists, and snake petting Baptists, where I come from. Let's see where else we want to go. A couple of little points here. You don't ever want to meet the problem at the level of the problem. Okay? The minute you think there is a problem, you've already lost the ability to accomplish a spiritual healing. So you can't deal with the problem at the level of the problem. In general, an extension of that is if you want to help the person, you've lost. Okay? If somebody comes to you for healing and you want to heal them, the implicit assumption there is that there's something to heal and you've lost.
I don't understand. My sister and I one time, she had her arm in a sling and it was too swollen to go to get it set in the cast. She was due to get it set in the cast the next day. And I told her I was going to heal it, and I put my hands on it, we breathed through it, and the next day there was no cast. Her arm was healed. And I did it because I wanted to heal her. So that didn't make sense to me.
Okay, that's
I believed I could heal her, actually. I looked at it and I said, I can heal that.
okay.
That's the way.
That's a different type of healing than spiritual healing.
Okay. That's the mind over matter.
That's the mind over matter healing, or the, you know, and the fact is that you believed it and it was true. You know, if you get enough people to pray for somebody, they'll get well too, because what you really got now is a bunch of people that believe in the power of prayer, and so that will have an effect. It's not that God decides that He's going to, well, enough people have prayed, I think I'll give this person a break. You know, God was not withholding, but enough people prayed. Well, I say they're not 83 yet. I need 83 people before I'm going to cure this one. No, but you know, enough people who believe in the power of prayer praying for you will have an effect. Just like the guys praying over the plants will change the plants. You know, I mean, the fact is, the belief will heal. But I'm saying, if somebody comes to you and with cancer, and your reaction is, oh my God, they've got cancer, I've got to help them, you've lost. Because you're already, then it's a lot harder, you got a lot further to go. If somebody comes to me and says, I've got cancer, I'm going to die, and your immediate reaction is nonsense, that's impossible, then you're starting way further up the chart, and you have a lot better chance of being able to lift yourself high enough to change your belief, to eradicate your belief. So it's your initial reaction is very important. The first level of your self-training is to train yourself not to react negatively to the request. The response should be, oh, is that so? As Barbara would say. Somebody says, I've got cancer, and your response within yourself is, oh, is that so? Doesn't sound right to me, you know, and you go from there.
So you don't necessarily have to say anything.
No, you don't need to tell the person that.
Right.
You don't want to, I mean.
Like I'm in my mommy class, and the teacher says, oh, X numbers of you are your kids are going to get this, 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 this. She names off all this. Mm-hmm. And immediately I was like, not me.
Right. Mm-hmm. She's right, and you're right. She's right. 23% of them are going to get whooping cough, you know. And you're right, not me.
You can just say it on the inside.
Oh yeah, you know, we don't ever need to. We don't need to present our truth to people. They'll come to us.
If your belief is there, then it doesn't. To me, then it wouldn't make sense to get pap smears or mammographies or colonoscopies because they don't exist, right?
If you're sure that that's where you're sure that's where your conscience is. I haven't seen a doctor in. Well, I've seen a doctor 6 times since I got out of high school, and I haven't seen a doctor since I had appendicitis back in the mid '80s. I don't go to a doctor. Why would I go to a doctor? You go to a doctor, you're in the doctor's consciousness. The doctor's looking for something, he'll find it in a certain percentage of the people, you know. So for me, going to a doctor would be like putting myself under his consciousness. And I'm not interested in his looking for things in me because he'll find them. Because that's what he believes.
Well,
So,
if I'm going there to check on it, then I believe it too.
Mm-hmm. You believe it's a possibility, and then therefore it is.
Right.
Alternatively, I will say that until you know it's not a possibility, it might not be inappropriate to keep an eye on it. You get the point.
Yes.
You got to operate from where you are, not from where you'd like to be.
Yes.
See, I have a second thing going for me. I mean, at first I would never, I don't go getting checked for prostate cancer or colon cancer or anything like that, you know. For 2 reasons. One, I know I know I'm not available to it. And the second is I don't give a shit. I also don't believe this is my body. You know, I don't believe death is terminal. I don't give a shit. So, you know, I mean, so coming from there, I'm clean. Okay? If you give a shit, then already you're buying half the problem. You believe the body's real, see? So you know where you're coming from.
I've had an opposite weird thing, which I don't know, struck me as really weird. One of my resistance behaviors is being ill.
Mm-hmm.
It gets me out of a lot of things.
Yeah.
I had this really weird experience with doctors where they can never find anything wrong with me. And when I was sitting here listening to them thinking, well, holy shit, maybe because there's never been anything wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pissed at doctors. I'll have all these symptoms, and they go in there, well, we can't find anything wrong with you. So I just figure they don't know what they're doing, but there's just never been anything wrong with me.
Well, in fact, there's never been anything wrong with anybody. from my viewpoint. So that certainly is true. The other thing is, you know, and at the total other end of the extreme, I mean, the guy, there might be something really wrong with you, but he's reading your script. You know. Your script might be, they'll never find out what's wrong with me before I die, you know, and so the doctor, you know, I mean, yeah, there's always you know, there's no quick answers. You have to know where you're coming from. It was funny, I was listening to a Robert tape just 3 nights ago, you know, and it was just so great because I knew this was the topic, and Robert said, tonight we're going to talk about spiritual healing. I said, well, cool, that's appropriate. It's, you know, 3 or 4 nights before the class, and so I plugged in and listened to it, and he says, who needs healing? That was the end of his talk on spiritual healing. Ask who it is that thinks they need healing. Find out who it is that needs healing. See, that's Robert's attitude. Who needs healing? There's nobody that needs healing.
The source of I.
Hmm?
The source of I.
Yeah.
Is pain also an error then? So you break your leg and then you're having pain and so pain and is the pain also error?
Sure, it's a belief. Mm-hmm.
In the body, a belief in the body, in the nervous system, or what?
Well, at the highest level, the body is appearance in consciousness. And consciousness experiences no pain, and the body is just an appearance. When you dream at night, if in your dream at night you dream that you're with Shane and he's in a lot of pain, okay? And then you ask me, well, now, is that pain in his body, or is that pain in his mind, or is that pain a body consciousness nervous thing, or is that pain spiritual, or what is that pain? You're asking me about the pain of Shane in your dream. And the fact is that there was no pain in the dream. There was nobody in the dream with pain. There was no pain. There was no Shane. It was all in your dream. So you're asking me about...
so the dream of life is the belief in the nervous system and electrons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. Or whatever. So to the extent that you believe in that, you can experience pain. If there was a real strong healer that was there at the time that you broke your leg, that healer could know that it didn't happen, and your leg would stop being broken, would just fix. That's equally possible. Okay? And then there would be no pain. Or you could have the broken leg there and have no pain. It's all what you believe. There's no reality to any of it. It's all hypnosis. The whole leg is hypnosis. The broken leg is hypnosis. The pain is hypnosis. The lack of pain is hypnosis. The idea that there's a leg there is hypnosis. All there is God expressed as leg.
It's like I'm thinking of a child before language, like thought, like 2 or 3, he falls down and he looks at himself, and until he actually sees like there's a scab or something, once he realizes there's a scab or something, then he starts crying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but there was no open wound or anything. He probably associates it with his mom coming up to him and pampering or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's no pain until he recalls how it relates to human consciousness.
Sure. And if you know, Robert certainly didn't feel pain, and Robert certainly didn't feel discomfort. And, you know, if you're aware that your body is an image in consciousness, then the extent to which you feel that pain is greatly diminished. You know, it's irrelevant. Nisargadatta Maharaj was dying of cancer. He was an enlightened master in England, in India, who was dying of cancer, and his disciples asked him, well, you know, looking at his body, he said, well, isn't there a great deal of pain? You know, are you in a great deal of pain? And his answer is, there is pain, but I'm not in pain. See, the pain's within consciousness, and he wasn't relating to it, and so it's very diminished. It's all in your mind.
You're making me think about how, like, one person can get pricked and they don't react, and another person can get pricked and just freak out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally their consciousness about that kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
I totally relate that to having a baby, because I did not experience unbearable pain. Yet I know people who've said, oh, I would never have a baby without drugs. Or, right, they're afraid, they're anticipating pain, they're anticipating this, that, and the other. And not focusing on the pain, but focusing on breathing or relaxing or whatever. That it wasn't I didn't experience that.
Sure. Yep, it's not that seeing is believing, it's that believing is seeing. If you're expecting pain, it's going to hurt. Some Joel comments, some miscellaneous Joel comments. He says, we do not become grateful that someone is healed, because that's all in the 3D world, and that's a lowering of your consciousness. What we're grateful for is our fourth dimensional contact experience. We're grateful for the experience that we had of the presence of God and the revelation of the harmony that was always there. So we can't be grateful that somebody was healed. Instead, we're grateful that it's been revealed to us that there was nothing to heal. He says, beware of doing good. The do-gooder mentality gets you enmeshed in humanhood. He says, practitioners cannot want to compete with doctors. We are not healers. We are states of consciousness rising to the knowledge of our own identity. So now do you see what I say when I say that, you know, I would never call myself a healer? Because I have no sense of healing, ever.
So you're a state of consciousness.
Or not. Which may have a direct impact on whether or not you see me as a healer. We are not changing sick into well, etc. We are revealing the truth. When it comes forth, there is no sickness or lack. As far far as your practice, try to realize the nature of spiritual grace, spiritual being, spiritual harmony, spiritual body. Some answer will come forth. And with that click, often the healing will appear to have happened. See, the healing is not a healing. The healing is one image replaced with another image. The image that corresponds to human consciousness is replaced with the image that corresponds with the reality of God, the eternal harmony and omniscience and omnipotence. Light doesn't do anything to darkness. Darkness is just the absence of light. Similarly, disease is just the absence of God consciousness. Nothing needs to be done about it. There's no power in darkness. Darkness is just an absence of light. There's no power in disease. Disease is just an absence of truth. It says, if I hear gossip that a third party is sick, and I believe it, then I'm taking on that claim. He says, what I know is there's only one. When the rumor comes, I reject it. I just say I have no evidence that that's true. And that, in fact, is what I do, not with respect to healing necessarily, specifically. That's what I do with respect to everything. I have no evidence that there's anybody dying in New York. I have no evidence that there's any anthrax. I have no evidence of any of this in my consciousness, you know. I just don't accept that. I mean, I hear people telling these stories, but I have no evidence of that. And if it were happening here, then I would have to correct my consciousness here and know that that's not true here. But I spend absolutely no time ever thinking about anything that is not immediately presented to me personally, and then I correct it. What do you think about the anthrax scare? I don't. I don't think about it, period. There's no reason to. What else? And let's be quiet. Quiet. If you're taking advantage of a spiritual healing consciousness, it would be wise to support that healer. And this would be another place where you might want to work on your supply consciousness too. It's another opportunity to indulge in supply consciousness. Okay, we're going to do one more class in 2 weeks, and feel free to bring any questions on anything. And I will bring an old list I found.